Let's talk about how to teach autistic people skills without using ABA. I talk a lot about how ABA is dangerous and harmful, but I haven't really talked about alternatives yet. A good option is to try out and speech therapy, but make sure they don't use ABA principles. Make sure they aren't trying to desensitize your child to sensory input. Distressing sensory input causes pain, and you can't desensitize someone to pain. You just teach them to ignore the pain, which is dangerous. Make sure they aren't using rewards like food, toys, breaks, or physical affection. Using food as a reward can cause lifelong issues with food. Withholding toys that belong to them can cause serious distress. Breaks are not a reward. They are a coping strategy that should be available whenever, and a person shouldn't have to perform something to receive physical affection. Make sure they aren't trying to eliminate harmless behaviors, like avoiding eye contact and stomach. Make sure they aren't pushing for speech. It is reasonable to reward your child with something new on the scale of how hard something is. For example, I get stickers when I go to the doctor's office, and if I do a hard schoolwork task, I get a puzzle eraser. These things are tailored to me, because I love stickers and puzzle erasers. Other reward options are things like a small toy, like a Matchbox car, or a new coloring book, or new pens, or anything small and cheap that your child likes a lot. Some kids really like small figures they can hold in their hands, so you could get them a cake topper or board game pieces or small toys. Notice that I get rewards for things that are hard or distressing to me that are necessary. I'm not getting rewards for eye contact, or speaking or not stimming, for example, because those are all things that are not necessary and are harmful to me. A good way to measure if it is reasonable to reward your child for something or not is thinking about if it is a life skill or a social skill. Life skills can be rewarded, social skills should not. Autistic people have our own social skills, and our social skills are not wrong. We shouldn't be taught that there is a right and wrong way to socially interact. It is okay to reward someone for regulating their emotions, though. That is a life skill. Another good time to reward your child is after a meltdown. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but listen. Meltdowns are due to huge distress. Meltdowns are avoidable if the thing that causes the huge distress is taken away. It is very hard to deal with a meltdown because it is very hard to deal with the amount of distress that causes one. Every time an autistic person calms down from a meltdown, they are trying really hard. It is reasonable to reward that, but only if you also reward situations where your child doesn't have a meltdown and calms down or takes a break or uses a coping skill to prevent a meltdown. It is a way of rewarding them learning to regulate their emotions. It's also important to let your kid be personally engaged in setting rewards when they're old enough to understand. You're not always going to know what is really hard for them, so it is important that they have the ability to say, "This is really hard for me. Can I get a reward for doing it?" Another tool that I find helpful are visual supports. These help me a lot when I'm very overwhelmed and can't remember all the steps for something. This can also prompt your child to remember each step and can be used independently. To make these, I highly recommend downloading the light version of Snapcore first. It is an AAC app, but it has built-in visual supports. It has a format for making first thumbs, mini picture schedules, and scripts. The scripts can be used to write out the steps to do something, if it requires more than 4 steps. I've made most of mine on list view on Proloquo2go simply because I find that easier to screenshot and print, but if you don't have Proloquo2go, Snapcore first works just as well. You could use these to write out and have pictures for every step of doing something. You could use these to show your child every step of getting dressed, or going to the bathroom, or showering, or doing laundry, or taking out the trash, or any number of life skills that your child is struggling to learn or remember. You can also use mini schedules and first things to show your child what is coming next, and when they will have a break, or what reward they will get.